All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Today we have Paul Chopra. I've been wanting to get you in here for a little while. Crazy story. You're an entrepreneur, you're a realtor, but once I heard your story, I was like, more people need to hear this. This is crazy. So you are a realtor, you're an Army vet, you were a special ops pilot, a contractor for Blackwater, and you flew Blackhawks for over 20 years. And you've been to Ukraine, Kandahar, Germany, Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, and dozens more probably. And so I got to hear this. I've heard a little bit of your story on some podcasts and thought I got to get some more of this though. So, and your parents are from England,
Right.
so you migrated over here in 6th grade. You were telling me.
Right.
So before we get into how you became a realtor, we'll get into that later. But I want to just start from the top. Where you came from, what it was like when you got here, how you got into the military, and hear this amazing story.
Well, I don't know how amazing it is, but it's my story. And let me say thank you, first of all, for wanting to do this. And I want to let everybody know that everybody's got a great story. This just happens to be mine. And I love hearing other people's stories. So
Same.
I'm reading books and listening to podcasts every day. So I can educate myself and learn from other people. So, but thank you. So yeah, we immigrated from England, where we were living at the time, in 6th grade, and came to the U.S. with just what we could carry. And my parents worked their butts off, and we are here today. So yeah, we're excited.
So from there, before we get into what even got you into wanting to be a mechanic that led to flying planes, what was high school like? What was it like coming here 6th grade? You knew, well, your parents are from England, so you knew English already, which is a huge head start over some people who migrate here.
Exactly.
But what was it like, younger life? What was Paul like?
It was really tough. I was introverted. Anytime you come to a new country, I think, at least for me, I was introverted, quiet, and tough to make friends. It's just the way you grew up. And we talked about the families from the old countries, right? Your parents, you got to please them, and we came across issues right off the beginning. Apparently, England starts you at school a little earlier than America, and so immediately when we came here, I was in 6th grade, and they put me back a grade. I was in 7th grade. They put me back to 6th grade. My older brother too, and they said, no, you can't. If you keep going this way, you graduate high school at 16, and we can't have that. So we didn't know any better, and we did that. But coming from the old country, went to summer school every year. There was no doubts about that. And then honestly, I found high school really difficult. Trying to assimilate into this country and learn about this country, and then but I love sports, and I did pretty well in soccer, but I played tennis, tried to go out for football. One of my biggest failures in high school was I went out for football in my junior year. I was 5'4", 95 pounds, and the coach had everybody stand on the field from the tallest guy down to the shortest, and guess who was the shortest,
Yeah.
And so when he asked everybody what positions they wanted to play, and he got to me, and I said, I'm going to be your best wide receiver you've ever had. And I could run fast from playing soccer. And so he told me to get off the field. And I said, no. I said,
just told you to get off.
Yep.
Just get out of here.
He said, look, son, you're too small. You got to get off. Can't use you. And I
probably don't want you to get hurt.
Right.
To be honest.
Well, that's exactly what it was. Because then when I said no, he looked back and he called over a lineman, and he told a guy to get down in a 3-point stance in front of me. And he says, okay, take him down, So he was asking me to tackle him. I'm like, but I'm going to be a wide receiver. I don't need to hit a guy like this.
Well, this is going to happen eventually.
He's going to hit me. So unfortunately, I left the field crying, but it was awesome. You want coaches like that are going to take care of you and see what could potentially happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the other bad part about high school is I was a C- student. I just couldn't get motivated in school.
Does that fly in the Indian
No,
culture family? Because I know some
no.
friends that would be
My gosh.
passing out right now if they heard that.
Right. And when I say C-, I'm giving myself a lot of credit.
Yeah.
It was more like a C-, D student.
Oh,
and,
man.
Oh, it was so bad. And you know what was worse was my 1-year older brother. He's the oldest, and he literally could look at a book for 15 minutes and ace the test the next day.
Yeah.
Where I was up all night trying to study, take notes, and then forget everything the next day.
Yeah.
So high school.
Oh, so then you got the competition. Your parents are like, come on,
yeah.
step
You're
it up.
supposed to be a doctor.
Yeah.
What the heck? My dad's a doctor. My brother's going to become a doctor, and my gosh, I was barely sneaking by.
Completely different culture,
Completely.
not like the American culture,
well,
especially with schooling and all that. Very serious.
Yeah, it was serious in my household for sure.
Yeah.
My parents.
So then that led you to wanting right out of high school or during high school? Is that when you found out you wanted to be a mechanic, or how did you land on that?
Good question.
Airplanes later?
I wanted a motorcycle. So I fell in love with motorcycles.
Oh, that's right.
So in order to afford one, I started working at 15 years old. I worked on Belmont Avenue at a Mexican restaurant. They were so nice, and so I worked for half a year, earned enough money. Didn't have enough money to buy a motorcycle, but talked to my parents, and my dad said no. Being a doctor, he wanted to take me. He took me to the hospital, showed me all the people that were injured riding motorcycles and broken arms, legs.
He's a doctor. He's got all the statistics. He's like, you're crazy. You're out of your mind.
And then to go to the hospital and see all that. And then he came home and made me talk to my mom. And
didn't phase you though?
Well, it did, but I said, no, I want to ride motorcycles, So we went out, bought a motorcycle, a little Enduro. $702 is what it cost. And I paid some of it, and I promised my dad I would pay him back. Mm-hmm. Well, about a year later, less than a year later, I sold a bike because then I saw bigger, faster bikes.
Oh, no.
And so I said, hey.
What did you start on, like a 600? Like,
no,
what was your
a little
first
125.
Bike?
Little 125
okay.
Honda. When I was on the golf team, so I would put my golf bag over my shoulder, get on my bike, and go to the golf course, and we'd play and use it for soccer, everything else, and then so I sold it. Interesting thing though, and here's going back to our families, is I promised my dad I was going to give him the money back, so I sold it for the $702 that we'd paid for it. Mm-hmm. And I remember the older gentleman that came and looked at it, and he said, okay, I'll buy it, but tell me why 702. And when I told him the story that I promised my dad I'd pay him back, he wrote me a check for $702. I ran in and gave it to my dad and said, okay. And he was happy.
Yeah.
But not so happy because I wanted another bike.
Yeah.
And that was going to be more money.
Yeah.
So
paid him that back, and he probably went, Paul's going to be an entrepreneur. And nope, I just want another bike.
Well, I'm trading up, right?
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
But we went out and got a bigger bike, and the biggest, fastest bike that Kawasaki made, and so we went.
What'd you weigh? What was your height and weight at that time?
Oh my gosh, I was tiny. I was 5'4", 95 pounds, little tiny guy, and I remember the last day of school, a friend of mine. I don't know why, but he was in the gym, and we walked to the gym, and he saw a bench press, and it had 145-pound plate on either side, mm-hmm. and he went down and benched it like 3 or 4 times, and he said, hey, try this, and shoot, I couldn't even get the bar off the rack. So
yeah.
He was making fun of me, but what I did was, if you take your middle finger and your thumb, you can mm-hmm. wrap it around your wrist. Normally everybody can do that.
Yeah.
I used to be able to do that on my bicep.
Wow.
And I thought, oh man. So then we talked about working out, and from the very next day, the day after I graduated high school, I went to the gym and haven't stopped since.
Yeah.
So, and that set me up for success going into the military, mm-hmm. Doing a lot of other things, just living life. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And so then after I got the motorcycle, I started working on it, and I thought, man, this is really cool. I went out and got a job at a gas station, just pumping gas. Remember when we used to pump gas, mm-hmm. changing oil from time to time. And then next thing I know, I'm changing alternators and doing other things, and I really liked it. And I had enough money that I had this desire to go fly. I don't know where it came from, but I just wanted to go fly. So I used to go out and take lessons, and I didn't know anybody else that flew, but I went out and got lessons and started flying. And then one day I was working as a mechanic, and my boss was changing the oil on the car next to me, and I was under this big truck, and it was filthy and dirty. And I yelled out to him, I said, how come we can't work in a clean environment? Where can we work as mechanics where it's actually clean?
Oh, because those airplane garages are like,
yeah,
you can lick the floor.
That's what he said, you're right. So he's laughing at me, and he said, you should maybe think about working on airplanes. And I said, what? Well, I'd flown airplanes, but I didn't go into the mechanic side, you know. Mm-hmm. So then I did. I walked out there, and I said, wow, this is great. So City College, Fresno City College had
Wait, hold on really quick.
Yeah.
Did you say that gas stations used to do service and change your alternators and everything? Mm-hmm. Like they had garages at the gas stations back in the day?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clear that up. Because you said you worked at a gas station.
A long time ago.
Changing oil, doing filters, alternators. I was like, wait.
Right.
They had full service garages at gas stations back in the day?
Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to clear that up. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Sorry.
Now you're aging me. But yeah.
I wish we still had that.
I know.
Yeah, let's get it all done at one shot.
I know. So it was good. But that led to finding out about... as a pilot, I was talking to other people, and they said, hey, if you want to be a mechanic, Fresno City College is just opening up this new 2-year program. So I went, met some great guys, graduated that with my A&P license, airframe and power plant license, and everybody went out and got jobs at the Piper dealership, at the Cessna dealership, and I thought, there's got to be something better than just that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But I was walking up and down the flight line, and a new place had just opened up. It was called Fresno Jet Center, and they worked on turbine engines, airplanes. And so I went in there and took my little resume and went to the lady at the front desk and said, hey, I want a job. And she looked at the resume and looked at me and told me to sit down. And she took it into the boss, and she came back out and said, you're not qualified, you know. I said, but just like I told the football coach, I can do this. You know?
Yeah.
Just give me a chance.
Yeah.
And so anyway, make a long story somewhat shorter, I went back to that shop 7 days. Every day I would go there for a couple hours and just sit there and have my resume in my hand, and the boss would walk in and out, and not even look at me. And then finally on the 7th day, he saw me and he said, what are you doing here? And I said, I want to work for you. He said, you don't have the experience. Get in here. So I went into his office. We talked for a few minutes. Gave me a chance. He said, okay, I'll try you for 2 weeks.
You went back every day for 7 days?
7 days.
Wow.
And got the job. It was night shift. Loved it. Clean environment. Something about City College. When I went to the A&P school, it was really interesting. Like I said, I graduated with a C- out of high school. Then when I started A&P school, it was everything that I wanted to learn. All of a sudden, I'm an A student. If I got a B, I was upset at myself.
You didn't find your niche yet.
Found it, yeah, and it was so nice. So, worked there for a couple of years, a year and a half, I think. Nights, and we were. You know what was great was after 2 weeks, the lady at the front desk came out and put envelopes on every mechanic's toolbox, and had my rollaway there, and she threw it on there, and I said, what's that? And she just looked at me and laughed and kept walking, and so I opened it up, and I looked at it, and it was a paycheck. Holy crap, I was making $7.50 an hour.
Sweet.
Everybody else had gotten jobs, and the highest pay for a mechanic, airplane mechanic, was $4.25. And so all my friends had gotten jobs at $4.25, and here I am at $7.50.
Yeah. And you didn't know you were hired on yet.
No,
you just thought you were working there, and then when you got your check, it was official.
Yeah.
And you were like, and I'm making more than all you guys.
Right. And I didn't care about that. It was just fun.
Yeah.
I loved it. And a lot
You're
of
officially in, though.
Yeah. After a couple of months, the manager figured out who we were, and he would take me and a good friend of mine, Ted, that were working night shift, and he'd say, hey, can you guys stick around for a couple hours, right? We've got airplanes coming in, they're business jets normally, and these guys want them turned around real quick. Sometimes they just need a tune-up, whatever. Sometimes even engine changes, and we would do it in 2.5 hours, get it done. The boss made a ton of money. He would throw money at us and give us time and a half, and then bonuses, and it was awesome. So it paid for my flying even more.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. So eventually I went from there to working as a mechanic. Oh, I saw a guy roll out a little helicopter, and I thought, what in the world is that? I was flying airplanes. I had got my license.
Totally different mechanics, though, probably.
And so I watched him, and he's an old Vietnam vet, and he was so cool. He rolled it out, and I said, what is, and I'm eating my lunch, it's getting dark, and so he said, yeah, I'm just going to take it for a 30-minute, test flight. He said, you want to come? Really? I said, let me make sure that this thing flies, because the rotor blades were all folded back.
You went and checked it all out, checked the oil.
Yeah, so he had to unfold the rotors, and it was run by 7 rubber bands from the engine to the rotor, and I thought, this can't possibly work. Yep, he cranked it up, pulled it up to a hover. So it was like
one of those smaller private ones.
Yeah, little trainer. So
gotcha.
He picked it up, set it down, called me over. I got in, and we started flying. And it was so cool. We went out to the foothills, flew formation with ducks, and then chased some cows around, and he showed me how to hover. Got into a hole in the trees and showed me how to hide this aircraft, and then pick little tiny branches off with the rotor.
Yeah, because he's a Vietnam vet. He's like, let me show you what we used to do.
Yeah, he's done this for thousands of hours.
Yeah.
So I just, and I loved it. Eventually, he let me try hovering 3 or 4 times, and I finally got it on the 3rd time. And he says, man, you really got a talent for this. I said, come on. I could barely do it, Inside, I was stressing out and sweating. On the outside, you
guys are probably right next to each other in a little bubble and flying this little tiny thing.
But that's all it took was that challenge for me to say, okay, this is what I want to do.
Wow.
And so I went from that to told my dad I wanted to fly helicopters, and bless his heart, he said, okay, I'll pay for it. And I said, you can't. These helicopters to airplanes is like 3 or 4 times the hourly rate. And so I got this idea to call head chief pilots for different big companies around the West Coast, and I called them all, 3 or 4 of them, and the question was, what would it take for you to hire me? And they all said, like,
because you just want to fly at this point.
Yeah, 1,200 to 2,500 hours, depending on what their jobs were. And I said, well, how do I get that? He said, go in the military. Every one of them said, go in the military. I said, but
because that's a couple of years, 2,500 hours. That's a long time.
Yeah, that's a dozen years sometimes. Depends on how much money you have and
can't fly
how
a lot
often
as a
you can
civilian.
fly.
It's expensive.
So for me, I would have to work full time, fly on the weekends, or fly on my days off, right, if I could afford it. So that led me to the military. So I went home and told my parents, look, I think I got to go in the military. And that was funny because I want to learn something new and get really good at it for a future career. And my dad, of course, looked at me and said, good, that'll be good for your discipline.
Wow. I was just going to ask you, what does that look like for an Indian family that migrated here?
Right.
Doctors, and then, now you're a mechanic, but now you come home and you say, hey, I'm going to go to the military. And they're like,
I'm the black sheep of the family. I didn't have the grades. Wasn't smart enough to do anything else, I guess. And yet, I found my niche in mechanics, and then in flying, and then in helicopters, but the drive.
I was just gonna say, your dad probably saw that drive though in you, where he went, military's gonna kick your ass. Can't make the football team. The military's gonna kick your ass. But he was like, you know what, Paul can do it.
Well, when you go to get your license, I think even now, I've in the last few years, I've had friends that wanted to fly and have asked me, and I've sent them to instructors, and the instructors tell them, hey, you can get your license at 40 hours. Normally it takes 50 to 60 hours before you learn everything to take your check ride and actually pass. And
40 doesn't seem like enough to me.
Well, it is. It's a lot of time.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of time. So for me, I taxied in on my last solo flight at 39.9 hours. and I called my flight instructor, said, hang on, don't shut it off, let me come out there. And he looked at the Hobbs meter and he said, go taxi around and come back and park it. So I did. I needed that 1/10 more
Wow.
to get the 40 hours.
Yeah.
And then at 40 point half or something, 40 hours, he let me go for the FAA check ride, and I passed. And so I got it at 42 hours, I think, you know,
Yeah.
because you got to take an hour and a half check ride. So anyway, so now I want to fly helicopters. And so, joined the military and prepped for the military by working out even harder for the last 6 months.
How old were you? Right out of high school? Like 18, 19?
No, I was 20.
Okay.
22, 24.
What does the military look like for an Indian guy back then? Did you have any bias? Did you have any problems?
Good
what was it
question.
like back then?
Yeah, you know, honestly, I didn't see it.
Okay.
Even in high school here, you know, I'm not white, but I come from England, and I had this crazy accent. People would make fun of me. I didn't see the...
Did you have an accent back then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I can't picture that.
Oh, yeah. Crazy accent. And I had a Scottish accent because we lived in Scotland before we came here. So
Indian guy, Scottish accent, going into the military. They were probably like, what the hell?
well, by then I'd lost most of my accent, but I didn't see it. I didn't see anybody ignoring me or using me or, you know, any of that.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of that when I joined the military.
And I asked that because I've heard that exact thing from other people, other cultures, races.
Right.
I always go, what's it like, you know, back in the 90s or the 80s? They're like, military doesn't care.
No.
I'm like, that's good.
No.
That's pretty cool.
And my jobs, nobody cared. I never once thought in those 7 days waiting for a job that it had anything to do with my color. It was, I knew it was all about my experience. I didn't have any. And
Best guy gets the job. That's it.
Right. And that's what I always wanted.
No politics,
right? So,
just whoever works harder.
Yeah. So when I joined the military, military goes up and down in recruitment, and so we were at a point where we didn't need pilots in the military, and so when I went in, there was I think there was 1,500 applicants for flight school, and I got one of two.
Wow.
Because my ASVAB, my scores were higher, and so we got in. So I never ever thought about it. When I was working out for those last 6 months really hard, I worked out with the guy that's still one of my best friends. He's black. He was an 18-year-old kid that was from Edison. He took the bus over to the north side to go to this gym, and as a payback for him teaching me how to work out, we would go to Fashion Fair and I would buy him Mrs. Fields cookies.
Oh my gosh!
And we'd
Carb
eat
load
cookies
right after a workout.
so he drank Cokes and so he would get a Coke and I would buy him Mrs. Field cookies, and we would walk up and down Fashion Fair eating cookies, and then I always made sure he had 3 or 4 to take home with him, and he mentions that every time we get together.
You were blowing through that $7.25 an hour quick.
It was more money than, you know, I just come out of high school. It was more money than most of us had, and so
Personal trainer, cookies. That's
well,
a good deal.
It was a workout partner,
Yeah.
and so got ready for the military, went in the military, and then didn't have too much trouble with at least basic training.
Yeah.
Can I tell you two stories about basic
yeah.
training? So I'll tell you one of my biggest failures, and then a leadership challenge that I was faced with our first weekend. So we started basic training on a Monday. Monday, when you check in, the first thing they do is split you up into platoons, and then you go get a haircut. And so they put us in a bus. They didn't tell us we were going to get a haircut. I didn't know anything about a haircut. I was having a good hair day. And man, I had good Poncherello, you remember Chips? I was having a good hair day. And we get there, and again, I'm the quiet guy, I'm the little guy, I'm standing in the back. By now I'd filled out. I was I think 130 pounds or something. But we go into this barber shop, and there's 60 of us. No, there was 42 of us, and I'm in the very back. They literally shut the doors on my butt, and the barbers are all looking at us, and they can see where some of the guys are crying because now some of the ladies were crying because they're going to get trimmed a little bit, you know. And so, of course, they look in the back and you come here. And so I accept the fact that it was my great hair that they wanted, and they called me to the front. And of course, they run that razor all the way down to the skin the very first time.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I hated it.
Yeah, because when you say haircut, they're just shaving it straight back.
Shaving it. So that was difficult, but you get over it within an hour, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
You're not going to need it where you're going.
But the interesting thing was, I had 2 years of college. I had some rank, and in basic training, the highest ranking guy gets to be the platoon leader. He gets to be the responsible person for the 42 people we have. And so on Monday, we got into a formation. The Black Hats, the drill instructors, call out the highest ranking guy. He had been in the military before, had come out, and now he was going back in. And so by Wednesday, he was fired. And you know, they teach you this. You miss one person, one person's lagging behind, and you get fired because you're the guy responsible.
Oh, gotcha.
So they're teaching you leadership in
and all you
in
guys
that
see
way.
it, you're like, damn, that's all it took.
Yeah. So Wednesday he gets fired. Wednesday night, a guy that had the same rank as me, he took over. But on Friday he got fired. Friday evening he got fired. And I took over at like 5 o'clock on Friday evening. Well, we have this formation. They send us upstairs. The drill instructor says, hey, you come here. And so I walk over to him and he says, hey, I got something to do this weekend. I'm not going to be back till Sunday night at 5 o'clock. Like, what? It's Friday. What do I do now?
Yeah.
Like, this is my first week in basic training. What do I do now?
It's all on you now.
Don't let anybody get in trouble. You guys stay upstairs. Like, oh, you're kidding me. Well, my squad leaders, a couple of them, had gone around the corner and listened, and they were trying to protect me in case something happened. Not that he was going to beat me up or anything, but just listening. And so by the time, and we're on the top floor, so there's 3 or 4 platoons, and ours is on the very top. So I go up there, and of course when I enter, everybody's waiting for me. All 41 guys are waiting for me. They're just standing there. And I said, what? And so one of the squad leaders, great guy, we became best friends. But at the time, he was an older looking guy, bald headed, tatted up from head to toe. And he comes over and he says, hey, we understand we got the weekend off. I said, I'm not sure what that means in basic training. We're supposed to stay right here.
Yeah.
And so everybody starts talking. I go over and change my clothes and jump in the shower and come back out. And everybody has got their beds made, their boots are lined up. You know, it's a big open bay. I as a platoon guide, I have the only little secure room. And so they said, hey, we want to go. What do you mean you want to go? They wanted to leave, come back by Sunday. I said, my God, this is basic training. You can't leave. Had this
It's all on your
conversation.
ass if whoever doesn't show up.
So I had this conversation for a little bit. I said, okay, just got to promise me, let's make it 4 o'clock. Everybody has to be back here at 4 o'clock. Please don't get in trouble. Within 5 seconds, everybody was gone. 40 guys left. That one squad leader stayed with me. And I said, what are we going to do? He said, I don't know. But 40 people left. Sunday night, 4 o'clock, I had come out of the shower and everybody was back. Again, all their beds are made, their boots are polished. I come out of the shower, go into my little room, and my 2 sets of boots are completely polished, beautiful, better than I could have ever done, because I couldn't polish boots to save my ass. But they're all done, and I came back out, and I said, what's going on? Is everybody here? And all the squad leaders reported back, yes. I said, anybody get in trouble? Are the police going to come? Is the drill instructor going to find out something? And about that time, the drill instructor comes upstairs and sees all of us and says, what are you guys doing? Nothing, just waiting on you.
Yeah.
He asked the squad leaders, everybody here? Yep, everybody's here. He says, okay, turned around and walked off and said, okay, I'll see you at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that was our first weekend in basic training.
Oh, that was the first week. Oh
First
my
weekend
gosh.
in
I thought
basic
this was like a
training.
few weeks in
No,
or something.
no.
Oh my God. So you guys don't even all know what you're doing yet, and they're just
Nope.
like, all right, Paul, it's on you. You're like, I don't
Yep.
even know what I'm doing.
Yep. And then they had an Oktoberfest on post. I don't know why, it was March, I think. And anyway, so the other squad leader and I get up Saturday. We don't know what to do. So he said, hey, there's a Oktoberfest. Let's go out there. So we walked around Oktoberfest all Saturday, and it took a major's wife. They were dancing in this big fest tent, and we were walking around trying to grab a beer. And I didn't drink, but the guy would steal a couple of beers, and we were drinking beer like everybody else in our uniforms.
Yeah, you guys don't stick out or anything.
Yeah, and then and they were all in. Most of them were in uniforms, but some were in civilian clothes. And so this major's wife caught us in the corner. We were just standing there, and she says, "You guys aren't supposed to be here, are you?" And we're like, "Oh crap." She said, "Look, you probably need to go back where you are supposed to be and leave those beers here."
Yeah.
So we put the beers down and hauled butt. But anyway, but we had our first weekend in basic training off. So that was fun.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So the leadership role fell on you. You had no.
Exactly.
You had no choice. You just had to stand. You just had to
I'd
step
never
up.
done that before, right? But it goes to show you that sometimes the people that you're entrusted to lead just need some faith.
Yeah.
And that promise of being back at 4 o'clock.
And you were the smallest guy. Smallest guy
Well,
there?
I wasn't then. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In high school I was. Here we are 2 years later, and I'd had my growth spurt. So things were looking good. But it was great to have him back.
Yeah.
But that competitive edge that I had, because I wanted to work out and not be the worst guy in basic training, right? So that same competitive edge came out. We went out towards the end of basic training. You go through the obstacle course. And so our little squads and platoons ran through the obstacle course, and I really liked it. We got to do it 2 or 3 times if we wanted to. So me and about a handful of guys, at the end, when everybody else was sitting down, we said, come on, let's go run this again. So we did. And what we didn't know was a couple of the DIs, our drill instructors, had timers, and they timed us. And so they went and talked a little bit when we got done, and got the colonel that was in charge of all of us, and they said, hey, we got a chance to break the record here in the obstacle course for all of Fort Dix, New Jersey. It's like, what? He says, yeah, you guys were like 2 seconds off. So let's go. So he brought in, 4 or 5 of the fastest guys, and we ran this obstacle course. And towards the latter half of the obstacle course is a 30-foot cargo net. Everybody, I think, that's ever looked at the military knows about the obstacle courses, and there's a 30-foot cargo net. Literally goes 30 feet up, and it's a cargo net that's loose, and so have a real difficult time climbing up this cargo net. It's about 10, 15 feet across, and then 30 feet back down. So on my way up, as I'm reaching the top, the first place, I'm in second, the first place guy is already on his way down. Just started on his way down. So as I crawl over to the other end of the 30-foot cargo net, I look over the side, and he's like 15 feet down already, halfway down. Like, shit, I can't beat him. Wait, I can. I just need to jump off of here, catch myself as I pass him, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be good. Okay, so don't do that if you ever think of that and you're going in the military. So I jump off, too far out, can't reach the cargo net. Somehow, a few feet before the ground, I finally reach it. I land with my left arm stretched out, and my inside of my left knee hits the ground. And hit the ground so hard, it almost passed out. So I'm hung up on this cargo net, and the guy's still about 15 feet up, 10, 15 feet up, because he couldn't believe this idiot just jumped off this cargo net.
Yeah.
And then as he's coming down, all the drill instructors come running over, and my drill instructor's telling everybody, don't touch him. Get up, get up. And I said, I can't. I think I broke my leg. He said, get the hell up. So I'm looking at this guy, and he's pointing, my drill instructor's pointing at the guy. You can beat him. Well, okay, so then he hits the ground, and I get up, and we start running. And we still have some obstacles to do. One of them was a really long hand over hand, right? So So we start that, and there's 2 sections of it. And if you fall off of that, you have to come back and start over again. Well, the guy did on the second one, and so he had to come back, and I'm going and.
So that gave you a little head start because he fell off and had to start over.
So then he came back, and I beat him like by 2 seconds at the finish, and I'm limping. Right, my knee is now hurting really, really bad. I get to the end and I fall over, and I'm grabbing my knee, crying, and we beat the record. I beat the record. He beat the record too. And then they form up in a big formation. They all walk off, and I can't get up.
Yeah.
And so,
hey, you beat the record. Congratulations. See you later.
And then they were like, "Come on, let's go." And they got 100 yards down the road, and my platoon had to turn around and come back and get me. And I said,
"Hey guys,
I can't.
Broke the record. Come get me."
Yeah, I can't get up. And so they called the ambulance, and I went to the hospital, and so interesting. Went to the hospital. The doc looked at me, took X-rays, and said, "Nothing's broken, but you tore every ligament on the inside of your knee. So I guess you're not going to flight school." He had my record. "I guess you're not going to flight school now. You can't do it."
All that for flight school.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
So he says, "Hey, I got to go get a form. You got to sign it, declining flight school." So as soon as he left, then I got ready and found some crutches, and I snuck out of that hospital. It's dark now, and snuck out of the hospital. Had no idea where to go. I'm asking people, "Where's the basic training?" Buildings, and so I finally get back. My DI is waiting for me. He has to legally wait until all his people are back, and I come there, and of course he says, "Where's your release slip?" I said, "Well, I don't have one." Mm-hmm. So, "What do you mean you don't have one?"
Dropped it.
You left the hospital. You got to give it to me. And I said, "I don't have it." Told him what the doc had said. I said, "Nope, I'm not giving up flight school." So I left. He just shook his head and he says, "Oh, you're in so much trouble."
Yeah.
So he tells me to go upstairs. I go upstairs, and the next morning he comes back, 4:30. We're doing PT, and doesn't say a thing. And so I'm just waiting any second now.
Can you even walk at this point? Or you just
barely
kind of sit there?
Yeah, barely. The doc had given me a shot. I don't know if it was cortisone or something, but it took the pain away a little bit, and so I did everything everybody else did. I would fall back a little bit and try to catch up, and anyway, made it through. So that was my.
Because if you don't get through that, there is no flight school.
Nope.
You're barely in the beginning of it.
Right.
So then you get to flight school.
Yeah.
How long is flight school? Once you get through all the basic training.
Yeah, flight school is about a year long, and.
So now you're getting all those hours paid for. You're not now you're getting through those hours quick.
Right. So then you start. It's really hard. Find out that I get airsick real easy. So an instructor pilot normally takes 2 pilots. One sits in the front and flies. The other one sits in the back and listens and learns. And
you didn't get sick with the guy in town?
No.
You guys were flying in the little one?
No, because I was up front. And
gotcha.
Yeah. So if I'm not on, it's like driving. If you get sick. Not driving a car. When you're driving, you don't get sick. Right?
Yeah. So that's why they say you want to drive if you get sick.
Same thing.
So you're getting air sick now.
Yeah. And so the instructor pilot would look back and say, "What the heck? How did you get into flight school?" But when I got up, it didn't matter if I was sick. I had to get up and navigate and fly and do the radios, do everything and so
I'm usually flying it. I'm not sitting in the back.
Right. So. It all worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get through flight school, and then from there, now how do you? So are you flying to other country? Are you doing missions? Like what happens later once you're done? You get your license. You're out of there. Like how do you? When did the special ops come, or did you do a few things?
That was 10 years later.
Okay.
That I went into special ops. But to answer your question. Depending on where you are in the hierarchy, so depending on your test scores, your flight training, you get graded on everything. I was number 3 in the class. So the first 2 guys were National Guard pilots who were already pilots in the civilian world, but now had joined the military to go to their National Guard bases. And so I was the 3rd person. So there's only so many Blackhawks, so many Chinooks, so many little birds, right, that you can fly. And I wanted to fly this Blackhawk, and so being number 3 in the class, I got to pick it. And then they ask you where your preferences are to go. You can stay in one of the states, or you can go one of the bases in the U.S. or go somewhere. And my wife and I had thought, man, wouldn't it be great to go to Germany and fly there? And so I got Blackhawks and went to Germany, and so we went there.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
So what do you do in Germany? What happens? Are you just on base? Are you just flying just for training, or are they sending you places? Like what?
Yeah,
what do they
you
do
fly
from there?
all over Germany, all the bases. Sometimes we don't go to the artillery bases, but there's training bases all over, and we get to fly all over the country, and it was a lot of fun. You know, a couple of blessings in Germany. I had great commanders, and then one of the commanders was so cool. He was Mormon, and he had a big family, and he came in and told us that we have so many holidays in the U.S. calendar for not flying, but the Germans have a whole bunch more. And he said,
Oh, wow.
we're going to take all the German holidays off too. And I was in Wiesbaden. Wiesbaden is one of the richest parts of Germany, and they liked it when we didn't fly and make noise. So the more holidays we took, the better it was for the community. And so almost every other weekend, we had a 3-day weekend. My wife and I hooked up with another couple in our unit and said, let's just pack an overnight bag. We'll go to Frankfurt, which was 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
And the next flight that comes up, we'll just take it. You know, it had to be in that local area because we only had 3 days. So we went to Italy several times. We went to Turkey several times. Just traveled all over the Middle East, Europe, and just saw everything. It was so cool.
Middle East came later, though.
Yeah, we'd leave on a Friday and then catch the last flight home on Monday and be back at work, you know, Monday night, Tuesday. So really worked out well.
So you were in Germany for a couple of years, and then how did you get to Special Ops? How did you learn about that? How did it even cross your path?
You know, when we were in Germany, it was really cool. It turned out to be an incredible unit for learning. We had 11 new pilots, but we had senior pilots that were some of the best I've experienced anywhere. And I can say that now after 21 years in the military. It's just, the guys were awesome. They taught us so much. They were really, really hard on us. But that commander that I had in Germany wound up being a commander in Special Ops in the 160th. In fact, he took his company to Mogadishu in 1993, and you guys know that as Blackhawk Down.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
so while we were there, we
But you
didn't
were
know
saying
any of
just
that.
what happened last time we met, October 3rd. So that movie, Blackhawk Down.
Yeah,
that
October
whole
3rd and
thing.
4th, 1993.
Jeez.
And he wound up to be the commander later on. Well, while we were there, flew all over, and then a guy came in one day. We had one pilot, a senior pilot, Chief Warrant Officer 4, who had been in the 160th and would tell us some stories about it, and it was just hard to believe. And then a pilot came in, and he was a 160th pilot, but honestly, he had a black bag with cash from different denominations from different countries, and he was on a mission, and he needed to fly a Blackhawk, so that W4 took him up in a Blackhawk, and then he was there for a few days with us, and then he left.
Yeah.
And we thought, this is part of that story that you hear that nobody gets to see, and here we get to see it.
Yeah.
And so,
It's like one of the Tom Cruise movies.
Exactly.
Guy shows up with a bag of cash and
right. And we were having drinks one night, and I got invited, and we all sat around and talked and asked him questions. I didn't even know what to ask him. So again, I'm the quiet guy. I just sit in the back and listen, and it just intrigued me. So, but that led to just striving. So my whole military career, even in Special Ops, I'll tell you that just like now in real estate, I just learn from everybody that's there. I try to stay quiet, listen, learn. We have so many trainings. We have so many people that are so good at what we do that it's better sometimes just to keep quiet and listen. And so that's what I did in the military. And so that led to 11 years later, when I had 11 years of service, I happened to be down here at Fort Irwin. For the first time, I was NASA West Coast flight lead. So anytime NASA launched a shuttle, remember the shuttles used to launch back then every other month or so.
Before they came down and landed themselves.
Yeah,
all the Elon
so
Musk stuff.
I would deploy to Edwards Air Force Base and lead a flight of 4 Blackhawks, and just in case anything happened.
So the helicopters are just kind of floating around the area just to make sure.
We're at the end of the runway. When you see the shuttle
gotcha.
land, you won't see us because the shuttle comes down at such an angle that you might see us for just a flash. But we're running at the end of the runway, lined up just in case something happens. But once he touches down, then we shut it off and
Gotcha.
let the astronauts leave, and then we leave. We
Wow.
go for the debrief, and then we leave. But we can listen. They give us the flight lead gets a radio where we can listen to Houston control, talk to the shuttle, and I'll tell you that part of the reasons I come on a podcast and talk is because I want to share this with everybody. Some of the knowledge we have, and that's why I listen to podcasts. I want to listen from to everybody else's knowledge. But imagine sitting at the end of the runway on a taxiway, not on the runway, but on a taxiway, listening to a radio when the shuttle starts re-entry, and the commander tells you that he's starting re-entry. Houston's talking to him, and for almost a minute, you'll hear Houston say, STS, let's say 216. STS 216, Houston control. Nothing. STS 216, 216, Houston control. And they'll say it over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden you'll hear the shuttle commander key his mic, and you can hear in the background the end of his re-entry process at 17,500 miles an hour. And then he'll say, Houston, STS 216 re-entry. And he's over on the other side of Catalina Island. And then they'll do an S-turn at Catalina Island. And that's when we hear the big sonic booms. And then they'll, and remember, they're not powered, right? They're just gliding. 17,500 miles an hour, coming over to Edwards Air Force Base and landing and touching down on the numbers every time. In fact, it's so well planned out that the cameras, the news people, the red carpet is already lined up before they even re-enter, so that we know that's where the shuttle's going to stop.
Crazy.
Astronauts are going to get out and put them into the camper van and get them out of there.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was really cool to experience all that.
And you're just right there on the runway.
Yeah,
where it's all happening.
So after 11 years, I was doing that too as part of my job at Fort Irwin, and went to the commander and said, hey, I've been an instructor pilot for this long, and I'm not learning anything else, so I think I'm going to get out. Remember, I joined up for 3 years so I could get some flying experience in a helicopter and get back out and get a job. I thought there was going to be cool helicopter jobs out there, but I really loved what I did.
Ended up staying for a while.
Yeah. Stayed for 11 years, and it was really interesting the way it worked out. My commander said, no, you've got advanced course coming up for your next rank. And I said, I don't want it. You didn't hear me. I want to get out. He said, do me a favor, just go to school. It's just a month long. Go to school, come back. If you still feel like it, then I'll let you out. And he's not even a pilot. He's a medical service corps guy. I was at a medevac unit. So I go to the school. We were playing flag football, and I twisted up my ankles, and it hurt really bad. I had air splints on them when I went to the school. And on day one, I saw 3 of my friends from that first unit in Germany, but they were dressed differently than everybody else. We wore ball caps, and they had berets, black berets. And I thought, what? And I tried to talk to them. They wouldn't talk to me. They would just, all 3 of them, turn around and walk away. Day 3, they found me at one of the breaks and came over and gave me this little tiny slip of paper, had a phone number, and 7 p.m. The only thing they said to me the whole 3 days was, call this number tonight at 7. And then turn around. I tried to talk to them, and they turned around and walked off. 7 p.m. that night, I think it was 6:59. I thought there was something I had to do at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Found this little piece of paper, and I said, oh, it's 7, let me dial. That same commander that was my commander in Germany same commander that was now going to lead a company of Blackhawks into Mogadishu picked up the phone. He's a lieutenant colonel now, and he picked up the phone and yelling at me, and I said, "Sir, it's 7 o'clock." He says, "It's 1 minute after." Roger that, sir. And it goes back to how strict our company was, our battalion was in Germany, and why he and a bunch of these guys wound up going to special ops, because we all thought the same way. Today, when you said to meet here, did I not ask you, okay, I'm going to come 15, 30 minutes early? And
I made sure I was ready too.
well,
I know Paul.
but that's if you're on time, you're late, and we actually believe that in special ops. So anyway, assessed for special ops. I didn't want to. He told me, "Hey, I sent you a packet. It'll be downstairs 7 in the morning. Go fill it out." And I said, "Sir, I'm not sure." And he said, "Just fill it out." And so hung up, and I did. I could barely run. My PT scores weren't that great. I went out and did it in the next 2 days and took a picture, all the things you're supposed to do. And got a 4th of July weekend, 1993. I was assessing for special ops, and on the thought Congress was going to give us, instead of 2 pilots per airframe, they were going to give us an extra pilot and a half per airframe, so people could actually take a break. They were working so hard that you hardly had any time off. So that was the reasoning. He told me that he sent me the packet, and I did pretty good in my first unit. So I assessed, made it to assessment, and it's just like any other special ops unit. You got to go assess, whether it's Rangers, Green Berets, Delta, SEAL Team 6, SEALs. You got to go assess. And so if you're in the top 10% of your MOS as a pilot, then sometimes you get picked to go. And out of that, sometimes 2 out of 10 get selected to stay. And so I was selected to stay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So from there, what's the next step from there? I mean,
Well,
do you get to pick and choose what you do, or is it, Paul, we need you here, we need you there, we need you to...
it's all selection. And so let me go back. So I went and assessed. I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and assessed, and the G2, the intel that I got for assessing it's just a normal PT test. You're going to do push-ups, sit-ups, and do a 2-mile run, and then you're going to have a whole week of other things to do, flying, navigating, taking tests, psych eval, polygraph, that kind of thing. So I got there the first day, and again, I'm standing in the back. There's 23 of us, I think, assessing. And so I was the last. So they laid out push-up mats and said, the sun's not even up yet. And they're like, first 5, get down here and do push-ups. And of course, the question is, well, what's the minimum? There isn't any. What's the maximum? Whatever you can do. Knock them out. Don't stop until you hear the whistle.
Yeah.
So you keep going, right? So that's what you do. And then you do sit-ups, and then you go out and do the run. And somebody asked, how far are we running? Just run. I'll tell you when to stop.
That would kind of mess with my mind a little bit.
It messes with everybody's
mind. That would
mind.
mess with me a little bit.
But that's the part of special ops, right? Nobody says, hey,
the
mission's going to be over in an hour.
Yeah.
Mogadishu, that ran over 18 hours. We lost 18 guys in that firefight.
Wow.
So, so they teach you right from the assessment.
Yeah.
Do what you can. And then they select.
Get comfortable with the unknown, because...
Yeah, and they assess, they select based on how much effort you put out. And I got to do the assessments after I got in the unit. And I'll tell you that we don't care how good you fly. We don't care who your family is. We had generals, sons, daughters come out. Not daughters initially, but sons. We had high-ranking people. And we would select based on, are you trainable, and how much do you want this?
Yeah.
And so you take tests, you do
your
everything.
status doesn't matter there.
No. So on that first day, very first day of assessment, we did push-ups, and luckily we kind of saw after the first group, it's 2 minutes. They're doing the same Army PT test. Okay, it's 2 minutes. And so, but the deal was, you stop when the whistle blew. So at 2 minutes, they would blow the whistle. And I wanted to show that I wanted this. And so when the whistle would blow, I would do 1 or 2 more. Now, some people had already gotten up because they'd maxed, or they were tired and they got up and left before the whistle blew. Most of them did. Sit-ups, same way. As soon as we got done, sit-ups. First 5, get over here. And instructors would hold your feet, and you would do sit-ups until the whistle blew, or until you just decided that was enough. And some people would just stop and get up. I did them until the whistle blew, and I would do at least 1 more. And then we came to the run. I'm not a very good runner. I'm a fair runner. But we took off on this 440 track and just ran and ran and ran. And at the end, it was funny. I'll share, some of my feelings as we go along. The cargo net was one of them. But I ran, and as we finished, as the whistle blew, I'm bent over, ready to throw up. I had given it all my all, and this guy's walking back because he was ahead of me, and he was walking back, and I looked at him, and he wasn't even breathing hard, and he had this Hawaii triathlon Ironman shirt on.
Oh no!
And I thought,
one of those guys.
I said, I think you passed me twice, and without even missing a beat, he says, actually 3 times.
Oh man!
Are you kidding me?
Different animals.
Yeah, we became best friends after that. But at that moment, I hated him because he was outrunning everybody. Yeah. But that's the kind of people we had, you were competing against. So normally the Army PT test is done. So we're starting to take a break, and they said, everybody over here, we're going to do pull-ups. What? Yep. So 3 pull-up bars, 23 of us. I'm standing in the back watching, and of course, what's the minimum, what's the maximum? There isn't any, just do it. One thing, once you touch the bars, you can't touch the ground or touch the sides, supports on the side.
This is all the same day. Push-ups,
right
run,
yep,
straight
right
to
after it. So we did it, and of course, we have the Montana State Wrestling champ there. I didn't know it at the time. We became good friends later on. He was in my unit. But Wade gets up there, and he's knocking out pull-ups like he's not even tired. And so then I'm part of the last 3 to do it. And one of the guys, of course, what's the minimum, what's the maximum? And then the other guy asks, what's been the most so far? And he said, that guy did 16. You think you can beat it? Let's go. Blows the whistle, let go of everything, jump up, grab the bar, and you're gone. Again, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down. Chin has to be over the bar. Somehow, some way, I got 17. I did 1 more. Now I'm beat. I'm done. My arms are done. And of course, what do? As soon as we hit the ground, everybody over here, and they open up these 2 big doors, and there's the Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Oh my God.
Son of a gun.
Oh.
So there are black hats walking around. There's a psychologist that's walking around. The unit psychologist is walking around the whole time we're doing these things, and they're all taking notes. Apparently, one of the notes they took was, I'm always in the back. So again, we get into the pool area. They shut these big doors, and it hits me in the ass because I'm at the very end, and I'm just waiting to see what the heck is going to happen. The instructor is all the way across the pool, and he yells out, "You," in the back, and of course everybody splits like the Red Sea, and I'm the guy in the back, and he says, "You, get over here."
That's funny they took that note though.
They do. They don't miss anything. They don't.
You're going to be first this time.
Yep. Of course, now, I just done these pull-ups. I'm beat. Everybody's beat. Some have had a little more rest than others, and they line up 7 of us, and here's your lane. Here's how you're going to enter. Don't touch the walls. You just got to swim 3 times back and forth, 75 yards. No big deal. So we jump in a certain way. I have one of the biggest men I've ever seen in my life next to me. And we jump in. Now, we still have shoes on, everything. We jump in with the life preserver they put on us, or a life vest, and a helmet. And safety diver that came up and gave me, he was a big guy. He gave me his vest and it came down to my knees. I swear to you, this thing was so big. And then he took off his helmet, he put it on me, and it came all the way down to here. I'm like, you're kidding me. I can't even tighten this.
Didn't even know they made him this big.
Yeah. And so, but there was no time to say anything. It was get in the water and start swimming. And we jumped in the water, and I thought, I just got to do this 75 yards. This is easy. I'm an AAU swimmer. This is easy. So I get in the water the right way, and then I'm just floating up to the top as the guy next to me is starting. Oh, a couple of rules. One is no overhead strokes. You can't get your hands outside the pool. You have to do side stroke, breaststroke, something like that. Doggy paddle. They don't care. Just don't get your hands outside the pool and make noise outside the water. And then two, if you get in trouble, there's two divers in safety suits with a hard hat on. Just look at them. If you get in trouble, show them the palm of your hand and they'll come to you. That's a stinking lie, because then I hit the water, got down, and as I'm coming up, the guy next to me, his big tennis shoe comes across and smacks me in the face, pins me up against the back end of the pool, and I thought I was knocked out. My neck and head
Right in the
hurt so
beginning.
bad. Right at the beginning.
Right in the beginning of it.
Very first stroke.
Oh.
He's doing the breaststroke, and I ate his foot. I thought I was knocked out. I'm coming to the surface, and I see the black hat over me telling me to go.
Yeah.
Why are you waiting here? Go. I don't know if he saw me get hit. All I know is I thought I was going to die. So I start swimming. Can't go too far. See the diver, and as I'm rolling over, I point to my palm of my hand, and I roll over. Next thing I know, I'm on the side of the pool, up to my waist, and I'm just expelling water. I come to, and I see these really cool jump boots, trying to figure out where I am. What am I doing? I look up. This guy's yelling at me, and his mouth is moving, but I can't hear him. And what he's telling me is, tell me your name. Tell me, because if you say your name, you're out, right? And then the diver's behind me, and he's telling me to get the hell out of his pool. And finally, I can hear things, and I look back, and oh, shoot, I'm in the assessment. I'm swimming. So I hear the diver take off. So I push off. I said, nope, I'm not quitting, right? And I push off, and I start swimming again. I don't make it too far, and I'm rolling over again.
Oh, God.
Diver doesn't come, and I'm on the side of the pool. Anyway, this happens 3 times.
And they might think you're faking, right?
Correct.
So they're probably not
Correct.
coming. They're like, let him get up and let him
Later
start
on,
swimming.
that's what I hear. So by the time I get done, everybody else is done and gone. So I get done, finish, and they actually tell you completed this drill. Get out of our pool. Go to the showers. So I go to the showers. I'm the only one in there, and my head is hurting, my neck is hurting, and the psych walks in. He's a lieutenant colonel. And he says, son, you okay? I said, Doc, what happened? He says, you died 3 times.
Wow.
I said, sir? He says, you died 3 times. I said, no. He said, so look, did any of the divers come to you when you pointed your palm of your hand to them? I said, no, sir. He says, that's why. We waited until you expelled all your air. You float 3 inches above the top of the water. And these guys are so good that when they slam your body up against the side of the pool, it hits just below the diaphragm and expels all the water and hopefully starts your heart.
Hopefully.
And it did. And recently, just this year, 2 SEALs have died in the water doing the same type of thing. You get so wore out. And I didn't have any medical issues, right? I don't know if those 2 SEALs did either, but you're tested pretty thoroughly in medical before you go to these things. But anyway, others have not survived. And here I am dying in the pool. So, that takes a little bit out of you. And so Doc said, hey, go to the ER and have that neck looked at before you go to your next thing. And it's at this time, and you've got your sheet, and yep, you got to go. So, that was really interesting.
Man.
to go through that.
Yeah.
But later on, I heard, and we go through testing. It doesn't matter what happened. Day and night, we're going through testing. We're flying. We're navigating. We're hitting targets. In aircraft I've never seen before. They're Blackhawks, but, they're the newest, baddest airplanes, helicopters we've got. We were navigating in the regular Army with Doppler, and they've got GPS. And we've got wind-up clocks, and they've got digital clocks that are
So at this time, they barely have GPS, even at this time.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And
imagine what they have now. Probably crazy.
Oh, yeah. So when nobody had GPS, right, they had it. And
I thought they would have had GPS like back in the 80s or something. At least something, a little something. Wow. That's crazy.
So,
It's probably better to learn it that way and then get into the tech rather than be a tech guy.
Right.
And you're stuck somewhere and you don't know how to operate one of those helicopters.
We still navigated with a map and a line on a map and time distance heading. Even though we had all this, most people couldn't figure it out. Once I got on course and I was watching, I would look at the instruments and say, okay, that's what that's doing. Okay. And then I'd be able to keep myself on course a little bit. But I didn't have too much time to look at the instruments and try to figure that out. It was still map and a pencil, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we had to do.
That's crazy.
Anyway, so that leads to the last day you're there and you go through, they tell you, 50 to 60 minute assessment board. And there's 8 or 9 people in that board, including the colonel, the regimental commander, and he's sitting up there, and everybody's asking you questions. So you're in uniform, you sit down at the position of attention, and they start throwing questions. Well, I died 3 times. I'm not sure how many times that happened, so I wasn't sure what was going to be said at the board. But the very first thing the colonel says, "So Doc, tell me, I understand Mr. Chopra likes our pool water." I said, "Yes, sir," without missing a beat. "Yes, sir." He drank, I think, about 3 inches off the top. And I thought, oh, gosh, what's this happening? And then they just started bombarding me with questions. By the time one had spoken and asked and I started answering, somebody else was asking me another question, and this just went on. It was really cool, really great learning experience. But, got past, and let me share another, I don't want to say Indian. I want to say old country not a stat, but thinking is that my dad
philosophy type of thing?
Yeah, my dad didn't care if we learned something. If we were supposed to learn something, you better learn it better than anybody else. Now, I was an instructor pilot. I thought I knew everything about flying. In fact, I was bored. I was leaving the military because I didn't think I could learn anymore. Here I am assessing, and on the board, the colonel asked me a question. And then he asked me that same question 13 times. And I gave the same answer every time.
While they're all coming at you.
Yep.
Question.
They would ask other things, and then he would say, again. And then he would ask me that same question. It was an easy question. And I'll tell you that I had studied to come here, to come to the unit, and I'd learned what I could about navigating, but in nautical miles, as opposed to what the Doppler did, which was in kilometers. And so the answer that I gave was the right answer, except I said nautical miles, not kilometers. And so I got it wrong by the Army, right by the unit. And so at the end, he said, "I asked you a question 13 times. I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "You gave me the same answer every time. I said, "Yes, sir." Later on, I find out, what if I'd have changed that answer on the 2nd time, the 7th time, the 12th time? Would that give him the impression that I wasn't sure and that I would change my answer?
You actually didn't know.
Once I got in the unit, I realized, you better believe what you believe and stand up for what you believe, and I did.
Yeah.
It was wrong, but I did. And the
But he knew that you were consistent and you really believed.
Yeah,
and
it was hard to believe at that time.
Because if you would have switched, you would have went, "Oh, actually, I was wrong." You stuck to the same one, same answer the whole time.
And then who could change my mind, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so they tell me they're going to accept me, and I said, Roger that, and yes, sir. And he said, is that all you got to say? Normally, I think you would stand up and say, yes, that's what they were waiting for. And I just sat there and I said, yes, sir. He said, that's it? Yes, sir. And he didn't understand, but then he said, you're dismissed. I got up, saluted, walked outside. That same Montana State wrestling champ was sitting, he was the next guy in. So the door shuts behind me and I hit the wall as hard as I could in the hallway. And he said, holy shit, did you not make it? Mm-hmm. And I walked away, and as I was walking away, I said, yeah, I made it. He said, you made it and you hit the wall? And so I get in the back. But
I got the answer wrong 13 times.
So
Even though you made it.
They had a library, and I knew the book to go to, and opened it up. And I said, son of a gun. And about that time, the door opens from the board, and the colonel walks in, the psych walks in. And he says, Chief, you okay? I said, Doc, I missed a question. He said, you missed one question.
Yeah.
So what? I said, is that what you guys are looking for? He said, nobody's perfect. So I looked it up and I said, son of a gun. I said nautical miles instead of kilometers. And then in that unit, from that day on, nautical miles was the right answer.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're using GPS.
Yeah. But your belief in that answer outweighed being wrong in his eyes.
Right.
Because out on the battlefield or when you're in another country and you don't, you need to believe and stick to what you know.
Right.
Rather than switching up and down. So he probably in his mind went, well, your belief, because they're all probably laughing going, I've asked him 13 times. He's not changing his answer.
Right.
He's just going to keep going. He's just going to keep nailing that same rut. But to him, he was probably thinking
that was good.
That
was awesome.
Yeah.
That's what
that belief is stronger than the right answer in his eyes.
Well, and then once you get in the unit, here's how it separates, right? It's different in a lot of ways from the regular Army, but one of the ways it's different is the colonel tells you, we will give you everything you need to do your job. You just got to do one thing, and that's never, ever fail.
Yeah.
That's tough to do. You're going around the world in a moment's notice with a bunch of guys to take out targets or capture people. You just got one rule: never, ever fail. Mm-hmm. And when I left the unit, I remember talking to the colonel and said, did I ever fail you? He said, no. Mm-hmm. I said, great.
Yeah.
Because that was the rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my eyes, that's what we're going to live with. That was my standard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was their standard, so I wanted to keep it.
Yeah. When does the contracting come in?
Oh,
Blackwater.
So I left the unit. Can I share with you how I left it? We had been in Virginia Beach training with SEAL Team 6. When I got accepted, so you would ask the question, do you get to pick where you go? No. Once you get accepted, then you come back to the company, to the unit, and you go through a year-long Green Platoon. So while you're in Green Platoon, as you're learning their tactics, their techniques, their procedures, how you learn, how fast you learn, how good you do depends on where they're going to keep you or where they're going to put you. Mm-hmm. I got lucky. I got selected to be part of a small group of guys that flew Delta and SEAL Team 6 for the entire time I was there. Within 6 months of being there, I got even luckier. Striving for success, looking up to these guys, I got to be in that lead aircraft from that time all the way until I left, which is incredible. But it was good for me. The way I thought of it was, all these guys are trying to get up here, and I got to keep getting better and keep getting better, right? So that was my drive the whole time I was there. The colonel gets to pick, the commander of the unit gets to pick who's going to be the lead crew on every mission. Mm-hmm. And he could change it anytime he wants. I changed flight leads a lot, but I would be the guy flying that aircraft in that lead position, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
They did ask if I wanted to fly gunships or if I wanted to fly lift, and I said, I think I want to try lift. And they said, why? And I said, well, because I want the guys in the back of my aircraft. I don't want to just get called in. Not that that was a bad thing, but I wanted to go and get these guys in, get them out, protect them while they were down, that kind of thing. So yeah, that was neat. So they let me do that.
Wow.
So that worked out.
Yeah. So what happened in Virginia?
So years later, December 7th, 2000, we were in Virginia Beach training with Delta or SEAL Team 6, and 40 miles off the coast, and we had a little bird hit part of the ship and go down. Let me put it in perspective. The pinnacle of my career in special ops happened the night before, 2:30 in the morning. We'd done an op that somebody in the Pentagon had come up with and had presented it to our unit, and we hadn't done it in months and months and months, and all of a sudden, for some reason, the commander said, let's try this, and we did, and we succeeded in something that they gave 10% chance of success, and we did it, and we were all on a high. The next morning, we were just going to go out and train some of our new pilots. The two little birds go out first. When they get done, they come back, and we fly the 2 Blackhawks out and train. I was one of the instructors, so I was taking somebody out, and one of the little birds hit the ship, went down. The radio call went out. We got an eagle down. And the colonel came running out of the TOC and said, hey, aircraft just hit the ground. The other air crew had a flight lead and an instructor pilot, and a new pilot, but they were all had more experience than us. So they launched them to go get that aircraft. Here's a great thing that I learned. So the aircraft, the W5 on that little bird, the instructor did an amazing job in not crashing into the ship and got it off the ship. Hit the water in 90-foot water, went down to the bottom. On the way down, the other pilot was injured. There was a SEAL, one of the SEAL Team 6 guys was hanging on the side. He was going to rope down to the ship. He hung on so tight to that aircraft as it was spinning around, hitting the water, it almost ripped his arm off. So he's in the water. The other pilot, as the aircraft is sinking, the instructor pilot reaches up, pulls the guy's survival vest, and then undoes his seatbelt, so he floats to the top. Now he's losing consciousness, but has to stay alert enough to do it himself. On the surface, as we're listening to the radios, and then the SEAL teams in the boats, they were training at the back of the ship at the same time, saw the aircraft go down, heard it go down, rushed up to the front. First guy comes up, and these are big guys. And they pick him out of the water, get him in the boat. Next guy floats up to the surface, and they grab him, and they realize, they throw him in the boat. And then the third guy is the pilot that was really injured. These guys are so good, these SEALs, that they looked at him, and instead of grabbing him and throw him into the boat, which would have made him paralyzed, now we know, but they said no, get a litter down there. So they have this new litter they were trying out of aluminum. They put him on there and put a neck brace and strapped him down, and then the guy says, I got on the radio and said, where's my frickin' aircraft? I need a medevac now. And you hear the pilot, and we're listening on the radio, and you hear the pilot say, brother, I'm right behind you. And he touched him on the shoulder with the wheel of the Blackhawk. He was right there, right next to the ship. And so they got this injured guy. They got all of them, but they got the injured guy on the aircraft. 23 minutes later, he was on the operating table. Come to find out, in that crash, he had damaged his spine, like 98% was crushed. hardly a chance he was going to live through that night. And if he did, he'd never walk again. So the colonel said, hey, everybody, let's meet at the chapel. We're at a training site, and the buildings in Virginia, these training buildings are off the ground because they flood often. Mm-hmm. And then there's 3 steps, concrete steps in the front, 3 concrete steps in the back. Of course, we're supposed to meet at 6. It's starting to get dark. I go and try the door. Nobody's there. Door's locked. I looked underneath the building, went around to the back, tried that door. It's locked. So I sit down on those concrete steps in the back and I just start praying for this kid. Oh, that's all we know is that, dang, he's probably not going to live through the night. And I prayed for him to survive and to get better, and God, please be with him. And just as I said that, I feel this big hand touch me on the right shoulder. Now I'm working with these SEALs. I work with Delta, and some of these guys are massive, and that's what it felt like, was a big hand hit me on the shoulder. And I heard this voice say, it's not him I'm worried about, it's you.
Wow.
I looked over and nobody's there. I tried the doors and looked underneath the building. Nobody's there. I said, why? Why would God be worried about me? I'm living a great life. Last night was the pinnacle of my military career. We pulled off this amazing hit on a ship. Anyway, I accepted Christ. So.
Wow. Were you religious up to that point, or just?
My wife we'd been dating since high school, and my wife had been talking to me about God, and her mom also, you know. And I was just too dumb, too lazy to accept Christ until that day. So that night, we're in the chapel. Doc comes in and says, hey, I just drove in from the hospital. Doesn't look good. He's going in for his 2nd surgery already. The colonel did something I've never seen him do. He said, guys, if you want to stay, you can stay. I want to pray for this kid. I said, okay. So we bowed our heads. And if you don't want to stay, leave. And I heard a couple of people, I think, walk away. But I closed my eyes. We prayed. We got done. And I looked around, and everybody was there. And I looked at this guy next to me, and I said, dude, you stayed. Well, yeah. Why? He said, I didn't think you guys believed. He said, what?
Yeah.
He said, I just started believing tonight. He said, well, welcome. We've been waiting for you.
And those are some tough guys.
Wow. I couldn't believe it. So, yeah. And
so you thought you were the outcast, and really,
yeah,
all these
I'd be
believers
maybe the only one
tough
there.
guys that have a higher power.
Right. No.
Toughest dudes on the planet.
They were all there. And so, this is before cell phones or anything, and we're on a classified training op, and so, but the word gets out. Anytime there's an accident, the word gets out to the families, and oh crap. So on the 10 o'clock news, I'm sure there's going to be, hey, U.S. Army lost a helicopter.
Yeah.
People are injured. So right away after we prayed, the colonel said, everybody get over here. He would give you the phone, and he'd give you literally two minutes to dial the number and talk to whoever got on that phone. And we called home. We called our wives. We called our parents, our families, or whoever you were going to call. And the only thing you were allowed to say was, hey, how are you? I'm okay. Just wanted to let you know I'm okay. And then the colonel would hang it up. Next. And there was a line of us. And so that's how our families know that, okay, something's going to happen. And so watch the news. Oh, crap. We lost an aircraft.
Yeah.
What happened? But my husband's okay, or, my son's okay, whatever.
Yeah, I got the 3-second phone call.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how we get, notifications. But anyway, that led to a couple of months later. So when we got home, a few days later, I told my wife, we're going to church. let's go to church. She's been trying to get me to go to church forever, and we'd go on and on.
And so were you out, or were you wanting
No,
to get out from this time?
No.
Or is that
I was in the 160th. We joined a church, went to several, joined a church, and that led to God telling me I had to leave, and
Gotcha.
I don't know why. And I would come home crying. I would just cry all night, saying, "Why? Why would God want me to leave, honey? What's going on?" And we couldn't. We just prayed about it. And so, in my neighborhood and in my church, I was a pilot at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And the funny part of it was, one day we'd been going to this church for I think 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months from then. It was the middle of summer, I think. I would play golf with these guys. We would do, all the church activities. And one day we walked in, and the entire church was there waiting for us inside the front doors, looking at us. All the men were on one side, all the women were on the other side, facing the doors as we walked in. And I looked around and said, "What's going on?" And the pastor walked up and said, "Paul, who are you?" I said, "What are you talking about?" I'm me." He said, "No." He said, you told us you fly in at Fort Campbell, just down the street." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Paul, we know a lot of people there. Nobody knows you." I said, "Oh." And then it hit me. Okay. I said, "Paul, are you, and they accused me of being in different government agencies.
Yeah.
And I said, "No, I actually do fly at Fort Campbell." And they said, "Can you explain that?" I said, "I work on the other side of the airfield, the black helicopters." They're like, "Holy crap." They'd only heard stories. They'd heard rumors. They'd never met anybody from the dark side, as they called it. And here I was, and I'd been playing golf with them and going to church with them for months.
Yeah.
And then they went to my wife, and the pastor's wife came up to her and said, "Oh my gosh, how do you do that? He's gone all the time." And I would. I'd be gone for a few days, gone for a few weeks. She'd go to church without me, and the pastor's wife was like, "Oh my gosh, sweetie, how do you do that?" And I'm talking to the men, but then I heard that clear as day. And my wife started crying and said, "You just do. That's what we have to do." And then so it was like blinders had come off. I got in this unit and I had these blinders on just like I did in the military. I had these blinders on where I had to strive, try to keep up with all these great people that surround you and surrounded me, and trying to keep up. And then here she is crying, and so and we had this calling to leave. And I remember it was in February, the end of February, I think, where I went to the unit, walked in one day, went to the commander's office, shut the door behind me, and he said, "Paul, what's going on?" I said, "Sir, I'm leaving." He said, "What do you mean? For the day? What?" I said, "No, I'm leaving the unit." He said, "No, you're not." I said, "Yeah. I don't know why, but I found Christ, and he's telling me I got to leave." "What?" So we got on this argument. I'm like, "No, I have to leave." He literally picked up the phone that's, attached to the wall and threw it against the other wall. Made such a racket that my best friend, Jim, was outside and walked in and said, "What the hell is going on?" Shut the door because he thought we were fighting. And commander says, "Paul just said he's leaving." "He's leaving?" I said, "Jim, brother, I'm leaving the unit." "No, you're not." "Yeah." So about that time, the first sergeant across the hall had heard the phone hitting the wall, or hit something hitting the wall, and rushed in. And so commander told him the same thing. "Top, Paul's leaving the unit." I said, "No, you're not. That's crap." And little Cuban guy, love him. But he started screaming and went out in the hallway and called everybody. There's 2 different units of our units, Blackhawk units in the hallway. And they all came out in the hallway, and he said, guys, Paul just said he's leaving. And I said, Tom, I gotta go. And he says, no, you don't. Everybody here knows. When these buildings are gone, if we have one flyable Blackhawk, you'd be the pilot here to do it. I said, yeah, I thought so too. God's telling me to go. Mm-hmm. So, told the commander again, and he said, I'm not telling the colonel, you got to tell him. I said, what? He said, I'm not telling him. He kicked my ass. But sir, he said, no. He said, hey, we got a battalion run tomorrow, or a regimental run tomorrow, you go tell him. So 4:30, 5 in the morning, I get out to the run first and early, and Colonel's out in the middle of the field by himself, and I walk up and tell him the same thing. Sir, remember that day in Virginia Beach? I found Christ. And now he's telling me I gotta leave. To leave the unit? I said, yes, sir. He said, huh. When? I said, I don't know. I said, aren't you leaving soon? He says, yeah, I think September sometime. I said, okay, whatever it is, I'll leave the same day you do. He said, okay. You know what that day was? September 10th, 2001.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Then the next morning, the world goes crazy. And
So you left September 10th. Yes,
I signed out of the unit.
You were done.
Signed out of the unit, turned in all my badges, security badges. They wouldn't let me in the unit. So, of course, 9/11 happens. I jump. It's the first day I've slept in. Jump out of the bed. We're watching the news, of course, second aircraft hits. I jump in the shower. My wife goes and makes me 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, because that's what we do, because I don't know how long I'll be gone, but at least wherever I am in the world, I'll have a couple sandwiches to eat. And got out of the shower, throw the shower curtain back, and she hands me my towel, and she says, you don't have your badges. And that realization hit me that, oh, crap. So I'm on my knees crying. I said, I don't care. They know me. They're going to let me in. So, of course, I race to work in her Mustang, and there's a line half a mile long, guys waiting at they're getting in, but you got to show your security badges and all that. So I go in the next lane and haul ass up to the gate, come to a screeching halt, and order the guards, get these freaking gates open, let me in, and they ignore me. I helped hire them like 6 months before. They ignore me. And I look at the people in line, and everybody's looking away, and they know who I am, right? Open the frickin' doors. And they wouldn't. And finally, the supervisor of the guards walks over, and he says, Chief, you don't have your badges.
Wow.
There was no use arguing. Yeah, I can't get in. Mm-hmm. I turned the car around and drove away, and it was a couple of days later, 3 days later, the colonel got word to me that he wanted to see me. So Jim, my best friend, met me at the gate and escorted me in. I go sit down at the colonel's office, and I notice on the corner of his desk he's got this red phone, and it doesn't have a dial on it. It just has a little red button. And so I'd been in this office hundreds of times, planning missions, talking to him, just BSing, and I said, hey, got a new toy. He said, oh, let me tell you, that's not a toy. That thing keeps me up at night. And I said, your best friends? He said, oh, no, because it's a SecDef or somebody from the Pentagon saying, get over here or get this done. And anyway, so he said, you still want to help? I said, yes, sir. He says, okay, go get your badges. Get back to work. Go to the skiff. Help them figure out a target. What? Go to the skiff. They'll tell you. I said, okay. So get my badges real quick, run down to the skiff, secure area, and all the intel guys are in there, and they let me in, and they hand me a dart. I said, what's this? Well, our local flying area is on the wall, on a big wall, and it's the entire planet, right? It's the entire world. And they're throwing darts at this world map. I said, what are you guys doing? He said, we don't know who did this. I said, come on, it's been 3 days. We know. I said, throw your dart. Where do you think we're going?
Jeez.
And so eventually, so let me tell you the other half of the story you guys don't know is that 9/11 happened, and about 10 to 12 days later, I'm driving into the parking lot. Mine is one of 2 or 3 cars in the parking lot. Everybody else is home. I drive up and I see my commander, the major, and then the colonel, the regimental commander, standing over there in the parking lot. So I walk over, and as I'm getting closer, I see there's red folders underneath the colonel's arm. Well, red folders mean missions. And the entire time I've been there, I've been in that lead aircraft, anytime he comes over, I grab those folders and start looking and start planning missions. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I go up and I say, gentlemen, how are you? And I start reaching. And the colonel says, Paul, wait. I said, sir. And I reach again. Like, you're playing games with me. Come on. He said, stop. I said, what? What's going on? He said, we got 5 courses of action. 3 of them don't include Blackhawks. What? How can that be? We just got attacked. I said, altitude. I said, altitude. He said, higher than Blackhawks can go. I said, no way. So he gave me an ultimatum, standing right there. He says, look, if you really needed to go, now's your time to go. Because I don't think I can use you for a little while. By then we'll have everything, ready to go. I said, okay. I said, I'm leaving. Because that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Turned in all my stuff. We left. And now you know that early October, there's books and a movie made about it already, 12 Strong, and Horse Soldiers is the book that we took in Chinooks, rigged up with oxygen masks to take these guys way up in the Hindu Kush and drop them off with rebels, and that's how the war started.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you end up going over there for anything at all, spending time over there? Or
I did, but not as a military guy. When I went back, the great thing about being read out of that unit is you get your choice to go to any military base in the world. Mm-hmm. And I got read out, so let me tell you that the reason I can talk to you today about all this stuff is 3 attorneys sat down with me in that skiff and had all the missions I'd done and everything we'd been through, and they said, we're trying something new. Give us 7 years, and then tell everybody about all this stuff. I said, what? I can't do that. These are secret and top secret missions. I said, just tell them. Tell them there's 100 guys like you that are going out doing things for this country and saving this country. I said, really? Yeah. So 7 years to the week later, I got my family together in L.A. and sat down with them, and I had all the nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters there, my parents, and I said, let me tell you a story. And I told them. Told them about special ops, told them about flying the president down in Uruguay, all kinds of things. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. Now, when I remember you were telling me about a story about Africa.
Yeah.
Pretty intense story. When was that all? Was that all
contracting?
Was
yeah.
That all before? Was that during the contracting?
So a week to the year after we left the unit and came to Fort Irwin, because I went home and got on one knee and I said, "You supported me all this time. I've done everything I've wanted to in aviation. I'll support you in wherever you want to go." And she said, "Fresno." I said, "No." I said, "Anywhere in the world. We can go anywhere." "No, Fresno." Oh crap.
No. Anywhere.
Yeah. But, we had parents that were getting older, and so, okay, let's go home. And we were at Fort Irwin, and a year later, a new colonel had taken over, and he was a little bird guy, and now he's a regimental commander, and he called and said, "Hey, we need you." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Guys are getting lost. We're shooting friendlies. We got to get better at this. Come back and help us." And I said, "No." I said, "I don't know why, God wanted me out of that unit, but I'm out. I said, but if something changes, I'll pray about it, and if something changes, I'll call you within 2 weeks. If you don't hear from me within 2 weeks, I said, sir, I'm probably not coming. He said, okay, fair enough. And I didn't. Now, a year and a half later, so 2 years after I've been out, a little over 2 years, I get a call 2:30 in the morning from a guy I don't know. And, his first words were, Paul, we got brave young men dying. How would you like to fly 100 feet, 100 knots over Baghdad every night? I said, say again. And he did. Thought about it for a second, and I said, yeah, I'm bored. I'm in. He said, okay, call you in 2 weeks, we'll set it up. I said, wait, one question. He said, you only get one. What is it? Who will I be working with? Because again, I don't know who this guy is that's calling me at 2:30 in the morning. And he kind of chuckled and he said, old friends. I said, okay, I'm in. He hangs up the phone. Of course, I hang the phone up. I put my head down, go back to sleep. My wife gets up and says, what the hell did you just do? Volunteered to go to Baghdad. To do what? I don't know. With who? I don't know. But he said old friends, right? And so we had a little talk about about why. And the great thing was when you're in a unit like that in special ops, they tell you if you did things right, you may get other phone calls and go help where you can. This turned out to be 2004, early 2004. Blackwater was just given a task to go. It's in Eric Prince's book, Civilian Soldiers, if you guys want to read it. It talks about one of his first missions. This agency came to him and said, do you have helicopters? Yes. He didn't have one. He said, can you do missions overseas? Yes. He didn't know if he could, but he hired a couple of night stalkers, and old night stalkers, and they formed Blackwater Aviation, and was one of the first guys they called, and we had a mission to go do stuff, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So, but I'll tell you that everybody thinks that and knows that we get paid like 2 or 3 times what we get paid in the military to be with Blackwater, but there's a good, at least there is a good reason for it. And you don't just join the military and go into special ops. Why? Because you need experience. Average special operator is 34 years old. There's a lot that are older than that. But you have to have a certain amount of experience to go. Blackwater is the same way. Not only did you have to have a certain skill set, but you'd have to have done it well in other places like special ops to get in, and at least at that time. Mm-hmm. And so I told her this is what we were going to do, and we did. And then when you go to Blackwater, then they tell you they're going to give you 2 things. Now, they want the world from us, and that's fine, but they're going to give you 2 things. They're going to give you $3,800 to bury your husband, and then they're going to give your family or spouse $1 million life insurance policy. And then when I went, they said the rules haven't changed from where you were before, meaning the unit. Mm-hmm. Don't ever fail. And so when the phone call comes, and I used to get them up until about 2 years ago, Paul, you keeping up your skill set?
Up till 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Jeez.
2 or 3 now. Might have been 3 years. But you keeping up your skill set? So are you shooting? You staying fit, right? Are you flying? And if you say yes, then normally the next thing that happens to me is, okay, just sent you the itinerary, need you, and you asked about Africa. And this one time it was, okay, need you in Africa in 3 days. And Africa was kind of different because all the combat was happening everywhere but Africa. At least so I thought. There was nothing happening in Africa. And stupid me, I said, sir, I don't want to go to Africa. There's freaking nothing happening there. I've been to Iraq. I flew security for our ambassador in Baghdad in '07. I flew security for the U.S. ambassador in Kabul after that. And now you want to, I didn't say this on the phone call, but I'm thinking, now you want me to go to Africa? And I told him, I said, sir, I'm not going to Africa. There's nothing going on in Africa. He says, you're going to Africa. I need you in Africa. I need your skill set. So, ding, I get the itinerary, and then he says, I just sent you your shots. What? Well, you need 11 shots before you get to Africa. And by the way, don't get them the day you get on the flight, because that's going to hurt. Mm-hmm. And so I'm teaching shooting out here at the police range. Somebody had found out that I was taking a short break from going overseas, and they called me like the third day I was home and said, hey, I could use your help. Let's teach some of these law enforcement guys and state police guys how to shoot. And so I was doing that and had taken a little break when that phone call came. And so I had to tell my boss that I needed to leave now. But the only way and of course I tell the guy on the phone, I said, look, I'm working for this guy that spent 15 years in the Pentagon. He said, okay, DOD, here, ding. And there was a letter that came, and he said, just show him this. So it's got Pentagon letterhead. I showed it to him, and I said, brother, can you read this real quick? And there's like 63 shooters around. I think 20 of them or so he'd kind of filled in about my background, and now they're getting a little closer as we're talking. And then he reads it. There's like 3 pages, he's got to read on the phone, and he reads it like 3 times. And he said, shit. And I'm hoping he's going to let me go, But he says, okay, one thing. I said, sure, what? He said, when you get back, you make sure you tell me those stories. I said, sure, brother. So gave him a hug, and he said, you better buy flowers on the way home. So got in the car, got flowers, candy, went home, told my wife, I'm going to Africa. What? Yeah, in fact, can you make some arrangements for shots? Here's all the shots I need. Yeah. We went out that night, got shots, and shit, they hurt. But yeah, went through, flew into Entebbe, Uganda, where the first airplane hostage rescue by the Israelis happened, and we taxied in right next, here's the building that it happened in, and like the history right there. But yeah, we flew through Uganda and Central African Republic, Niger, all of those things. Yeah, really interesting. Spent 2 years flying around there.
Didn't you have a bit of a firefight there? And
yeah,
what was that at?
A lot at, yeah.
Had a little situation out there.
Yeah, we got into a few, but I don't want to get into too much about all of that. But yeah, my second to last flight in country, they were local special ops guys that didn't wear body armor. And so we couldn't supply them. We just barely had enough for ours. And so tried to go back in and rescue them. And we were just getting overrun by bad guys. And we were lucky to all get everybody out and the rest of us out safely. But yeah.
Yeah, so Africa was pretty dangerous. It wasn't just flying around and...
But it was just like anywhere else, right? I mean, the difference is when you get called up in, at least in my time as a contractor, we protected the ambassador. So we trained, flew them out in the red zone every day, or a rep. Kandahar, we hit with the DEA and our special ops guys, hit the drug lords and hit their drug labs every morning, 4:35 in the morning. So yeah, there was combat all the time.
Yeah.
But that was part of signing up to be, Blackwater guy.
Yeah. So all that time goes by, and then become a realtor. Finally.
Yeah, I needed some stress in my life.
Put the wheels down. Don't go,
Yeah. Yeah, so finally retired.
Time to stay on the ground for a while.
Yeah. You know, we have a saying that I learned from Delta is that the guys used to say, I asked, I'll just tell you a story. We were at a classified site in the forest of some European country, getting ready to take down a leader of another country, and we hate waiting. We're type A's that will eat each other up if we don't have somebody else to fight. And one night, two guys started fighting, and Sergeant Major came over and broke them up, and the guy that started, these are big Delta guys, right? So he pointed at the guy that started it, and I'm just going to make up her name. Let's say it's Jennifer. He said, if you don't knock this shit off, I'm going to call Jennifer. And immediately you see kind of a fear in his face, and then he kind of calms down and turns around and walks off. And I got this another big guy next to me. I said, what the hell was that? And the guy looks at me and he's shaking his head. He says, Paul, have you never heard? I said, what? He said, we have another saying. That is, we fear no man on this planet. But when that 100-pound woman talks, I said, yeah, I got it, man. Yep, absolutely. So, yeah. So my wife, when she finally put her foot down and said, I think it's enough, we've done a lot, and we're blessed to be all in one piece. Let's just call it good.
Yeah.
I said, are you sure? I said, yeah. So
Man.
I told him as of that day, I was retired. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, you know, and it turned out that a year later, in that same area that I was in, 3 Special Forces guys get killed. There was 4, but they couldn't find the 4th body. They don't, so...
Where you had just left?
Yeah, so, you know, they tell you that if something happens, our Special Forces guys are there, but you're not. So we won't recognize that, right? Mm-hmm. You'd never hear anybody in our Pentagon or State Department say there was people there other than our Special Forces team. So, is that God getting us out of there just in time? Maybe.
Yeah.
But it seems like I've lived a pretty blessed life as far as that goes. Yeah. But when I was in Baghdad, we would fly missions a lot at night, and there was a lot of times when the same unit would fly in and tell us what was going on and give us a, you know, kind of an update. Not because of me, but the boss I was working for there was from my unit. Had been there a long time in the unit, and so they would fly in and get us together and tell us what was going on. So that was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. When I left the unit, things would happen. And the colonel was really cool. He would fly 2 Blackhawks in, like when I was at Fort Irwin. Something happened, it was on the news, and then a couple of days later, 2 Blackhawks would land, black, no markings. I was grading a pilot's check ride that I'd given him, and a young specialist comes to the door and says, Sir, there's people out here. I said, what people? 2 black helicopters just landed. Like she was whispering, like we're in a building.
You're excited, like I'm gonna go fly one.
And I said, oh, okay. And then she ran off, and then the E6, the sergeant would come in and say, sir, commander wants you. I said, oh, what's going on? He said, 2 black helicopters. You know, he's whispering again. Mm-hmm. 2 black helicopters just landed. I said, okay, I'll be there in a second. And so I said, come on, let's go out and figure this out. So we walked into operations. Our operations room is a little tiny room, but we got 30 guys and they're all looking out the window at these 2 black helicopters, you know, and then the people start walking out. One of the pilots starts walking up. They're a good 100 yards away. The guy gets within 75 yards. And then, and the people are freaking out. These young soldiers are freaking out. And then I feel a tap on my shoulder on my combat patch from the unit. And I look over and it's the commander, major. And he says, Paul, these are your guys? I said, yes, sir. He said, would you mind talking to them out there? Okay. Everybody's scared.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay. So I walked out. It's my friend Jim. We hug and walked back to the aircraft, and I said, Jim, what's going on? He said, did you hear about what happened a couple of nights ago? I said, yeah. He said, the boss wanted us to come over and tell you what happened. Wow, cool. So talked to him all about it. And then the guys shook their hands. They flew off. And the great thing was the Bin Laden raid. You know about the Bin Laden raid. This happened several times, but after the Bin Laden raid, I was in Kandahar, heard it happen, and then about a week later, a couple of guys show up with flight suits that are unlike any other flight suits. I'm a civilian, right? So I'm flying in civilian clothes. But these guys show up, and I recognize one of them sitting way in the back, and we kind of nod at each other, and we sit down, we finish our meals, and then as everybody's leaving, and we just walk to our building like a block away, I look back over there, and the guy said, stay. So we put our trays up, and I said, guys, I'll see you back there in a minute. Came back, sat down, then those 4 came over and sat down, and I said, hey, you heard what happened? I said, a week ago? Yeah. I said, boss wanted us to come over and fill you in. I said, okay. So we're sitting, where nobody is, and they told me all the things that had happened, and I said, you left an aircraft there? I said, yeah.
Wow.
And they said, we know, Paul, we know. You always said, don't be on the 6 o'clock news. And the young pilot that was there with him in the unit got upset and said, we didn't fuck up, we didn't do anything wrong. I said, so before I could say anything, the guy shut him up. Said, it doesn't matter. We could have done everything perfectly, but if we're on the 6 o'clock news, we didn't do it perfectly. So yeah.
Man.
Standards are high.
Yeah.
Really, really high.
Was it hard to stay in town and not, because you hadn't gone back and forth after that, or been called anymore after that, had you?
So when I retired, yeah, it was tough. But one of the things I owed everybody, including my wife, was that I'm a man of my word. So if I'd have kept my license up, that would have been more reason to go, right? And
yeah.
I would have had the right to go. Boom. I could have said yes, and I'd have been on the next flight, and I'd be somewhere in the world. So I let my license lapse, and that way. Now, could I go back? Yeah, it would take about a week to figure out, schedule a flight physical and a couple of check rides, and I'd be out of here. But it's best if I don't, because that temptation, it's huge. When you think about it yourself. I know you're not a military guy, and I know you don't fly, but when you get a phone call at 2:30 in the morning, and the guy says, "We got brave young men dying. Need your help," what would you do?
Yeah.
Right. Now, I should probably.
Well, especially if you have an asset or a skill that can help in that situation, because that's what you've been trained to do.
Yeah, that's what they're calling. And it was really cool. But the other part of it is, let me separate the regular Army. We already talked about special ops and how it's different. One of the other ways that's different is when we're planning a mission, anybody can say anything to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You got a better idea? Let's talk about it. Even up to the colonel level, let's talk about it. And you couldn't ever do that in the regular Army, at least not when I was there. You got to say. Now, at some point, the colonel says, great thing. He says, all right, the good idea cutoff time is now. That's it. Mm-hmm. We got our mission. We got our contingencies. Let's go. Execute. And we do.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is you get to strive to be the best you can be. I know you used to be able to do that in the military, and you still can, certainly. We're not striving for medals or for rank, and at least I wasn't in special ops. I wanted to stay in that lead aircraft. I wanted to get in that lead aircraft, right? So that there's always a competition amongst all of us.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Or even just inside yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And then when the missions would come up, I think we talked about it before, is I'm not just flying Blackhawks. Now, if they need me to fly another aircraft, I get to go learn that aircraft. So, the great thing is you can say anything to anybody at any time. If you have a better idea, then give you a better idea. And then with being a contractor, what was great was they needed me to fly the U.S. ambassador in Baghdad, in Kabul, and then an op came up where I needed to fly Mi-17, so they sent me to Ukraine for a week. And you get a week to go to Ukraine, learn their aircraft, come back, and now we're flying it on missions.
Yeah.
And then another job came up where I had to learn the Super Puma, a British aircraft. So they sent me to Palm Beach, Florida, and we spent some time learning the Super Puma, got our checkouts, check rides, and go back and fly that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Africa, I think we were flying S-60s, the same helicopter that takes the president from picks him up at the White House. And so we got to fly those for a while.
Yeah.
So it was great to get into the other aircraft, do different missions. So that was cool.
Man.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Jeez. Well, I'm glad I got to hear it, man, because I've seen some of your other podcasts, and I was like, man, I know there's more story. And then we've had little talks here and there out at the golf course.
There's
and I was
many
just
more
like,
stories.
oh my gosh,
I appreciate it.
I got to hear this. I know you as successful realtor here in the Valley, but then when I start hearing little stories, I'm like, oh no, I got to hear this. So
you know about me as a realtor. Yeah,
it.
thank you. And I consider you a friend. I don't have too many, and it's hard. It's hard to make friends, and real good friends. So I appreciate you thinking about me and asking me to come on.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks, Paul, for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Damon.
All right.